So, given that you do write so many different types of books, can you tell us a little bit about the difference in the process of writing? For instance, a novel versus a memoir versus essays?
Uh, oh goodness. Well, with fiction, it's about the characters, right? It's all character driven. So so even before I could move forward with Unforgivable Love, I had to understand who my version of the dangerous liaison characters were. You know, who was my Valmont? Who was my Madame Mertoy? Who was my Madame de Torbel? So, you know, I had to name them even. So that's a big thing. That's a very difficult thing. Um, I first had to just write out almost like a profile. You know, what is this character's name? What do they sound like? Do they have any particular um, ticks, or do they dress a certain way? You know, and some of this is just I have to leave the door open because the character is going to develop. I don't know what they're going to become, but I need something to start with. So with fiction, I have to start with the character, and I am an outliner, so I will also outline the story as much as I can. Again, it's going to change because fiction is a journey, and your characters are going to grow and develop in ways that I can't um, um, anticipate. But to me, an outline at least helps me sit down and gives me a direction when I'm working on the book. So that's the idea with fiction, and I'm thinking in terms of structure and arc, and I'm trying to hit certain notes, and I'm engaging the reader in a certain way. So that's what I'm doing when I'm working on fiction. With an essay, I start with the germ of an idea, but I really have no idea where the essay is going to go, and that's tricky. And I don't want to say the word dangerous, but it can be kind of scary because I don't know what's going to come up. So, for example, there's an essay in my collection about a woman, an old family friend of ours who I didn't know as a child but met when I was an adult. Her name was Annie Pearl. And I met her not long after my father died, and I just was fascinated with her because for some reason she seemed to be a big fan of mine, and she knew my father really well when he was a very young man. And so and this 80-something-year-old woman asked me to find her a fur coat in New York City. And she said, "Can you get me one of those fur coats?" Like she saw on TV, like, like Louise Jefferson of the Jeffersons. And she was so endearing to me. I told her yes, I would find her a fur coat. And it sent me on this odyssey of going through thrift stores, looking for used fur coats that would be glamorous enough and just right for Annie Pearl. And I sat down thinking, oh, I've always had this story in my head. I want to write an essay about this. But in writing the essay, it's not just a straight story about that search. I'm asking myself, well, why am I so fascinated about this journey? What about this is intriguing to me? And I started down this path of thinking about what it was like buying gifts for my mother. And suddenly I realized I'm writing an essay, and not a very easy one, about my mother. So um, that's the scary thing about essays. You know, again, it takes time for something like that to develop, and I have to be aware and open-minded enough to let that develop. With memoir, there's a little bit of both aspects. So I'm having the discovery aspect, that we have both in fiction and nonfiction. I can do a little bit of outlining because with a memoir, there is a story I'm telling. I'm telling you a story about this particular time in my life. Um, the arc isn't as evident. Okay, so structure-wise, I'm a little bit more in the dark, but I'm having to feel my way, but wanting it to be structured chapter by chapter in the same way that fiction would be. Um, at the same time, I want to be engaging. I want to be inviting the reader into my process. So it's almost like I'm a character in my own life, right? And am I presenting this character truthfully on the page? So you know aspects of all of these things are very similar, but sometimes they're very different. Um, I just want to make sure I'm writing well, and am I telling the story well, whether it be fiction or nonfiction.